Oh, hi, Randa. Can you hear us?
Hi, how are you doing?
We're
Good
good.
morning,
We're good.
Randa.
Good morning.
All right. We have Randa today, our one of our female authors, who is also one of the daughters of our the DSP's other authors, and
Uh-huh.
she has three books or three series so far. So we're gonna talk about that and how was this gonna be or how it goes. So, okay, here's my question though. Why Western? Because I see
Um,
female like you would actually like, let's say, probably like one of those fantasy romance or other like, stuff like that. So
I
why?
do. Yeah, I do. I enjoy those books too. I enjoy a wider range of different type of books. They're all fun for me to read. I'm a big reader. I enjoy pretty much reading anything. Growing up, I read a lot of Louis L'Amour books when I was younger. So those were some of my first books to read. And then I watched a lot of the old westerns and I don't know, growing up in Arizona, those were just some of the things, the landscape and the stories. They were just fun. I was just drawn to them and I enjoyed that a lot. So that's why I like those.
I guess it's the influence that actually inspired you to go on that writing Western.
Yeah, as well as I've got to say, my dad, he writes for Diaz Productions. His name's Randall Dale, and he's the one who really got me into writing for DS as well. And so I think definitely a lot of his influence as well in reading his books and being like, those are really good characters. Those are really fun stories, and thinking that maybe I have some stories to tell too. So probably, yeah, probably my dad would be my biggest influence for why I'm actually writing Westerns right now.
And speaking of writing Westerns on things, we're now into the third book of the series, which I believe is Outlaw's Revenge coming out soon.
Mhm.
What can you tell us? Oh, get us up to speed so far with everything that's happened so far.
I first started out with this idea of a character, and she's not your typical Western character, I suppose. Usually Westerns have a lot of sheriffs or US Marshals and stuff, and they're the heroes of the story. And when I started out, I wanted to write a story about the heroes, and I actually started with two characters, Rebecca and Will, who I thought were going to be my main characters. And I had this other character, and she was a side character, and her name is Margaret. And she's actually the madam of a brothel, and she's just had some really rough situations in life. She's had a hard life and she keeps making the most of every situation, but she's kind of gone down a path of, a more of an outlaw take. And she was so fun to write. And kind of getting into her story was so much fun for me. And so I kind of veered off from, I originally thought it was going to be more about Rebecca and Will and these hero characters, but Margaret was just so intriguing. And so the books ended up being more about Margaret and the choices that she makes and what she does and stuff like that. So she wants out. She wants to have a different life for herself and her girls, and she doesn't want to be being, the madam of a brothel anymore. She doesn't want to do that. And so she decides that she wants out. And so she's going to do whatever she needs to do to get there. And she's not afraid to steal. She's not afraid to lie. She's not afraid to do whatever she needs to do to get there. And it starts out with her working with this other outlaw, and they kidnap Rebecca and they're going to try to hold her for ransom. And it just kind of goes from there. And then I don't know, she's just such a fun character. She's bad, she's vindictive, she's not afraid to kill people. She's just like this quintessential outlaw character. And so she's really fun to write. I don't know if I answered your question with that.
Oh, definitely. Was intrigued to see where the story was going to go here because we had them at the beginning there. You had the conflict going between I guess, the good girl and the bad girl type thing. And then we basically took up um, them moving to a new town in Denver City and then basically getting burned out of that one. And now we're on to somewhere new. So, yeah,
Yeah.
what can you tell us about giving us the entire plot so that we want to go buy the book, not hear it all at the moment.
Well, they at the end of the last book, she just barely there was a bad reverend, and he was hypocrite, he was bad, he was just nasty, a nasty character. And so he set their saloon. They finally started to get a little bit ahead, and they had a saloon that they were running, her and her girls, and they were starting to get a little bit ahead, and he burns it down, and so she has to take him out and get rid of him. And so she does that. And then in this next book, she's ends up coming head to head. They're trying to rob trains. They're trying to get money to rebuild the saloon, to re-get themselves back on track in life. And they're doing really well with that. And she comes head to head with an old outlaw member of her previous, the man that she was involved with previously when they had kidnapped Rebecca. He was a member of the outlaw gang. And she finds out that he was actually the one that had killed Brannigan, who had been her lover, her boyfriend, whatever. And she had always thought that it had been the Marshalls that had done it. And so she had been trying to take revenge on the Marshalls and all the people, but she finds out it was actually Jake who had killed Brannigan. And so now she's like, well, now I've got, I'm going to go after Jake and stuff like that. So she wants to kill him and get him out of the way. Plus, she's been kind of framing him for these train robberies and stagecoach robberies. She's been making it look like it was actually Jake who was the one behind them when it was actually her and her girls. And so she now he's kind of a double threat because he knows that she's been framing him, and she just found out that he was actually the one who killed Brannigan. So they come to a head, and she needs to take him out now.
So you have everybody working, acting very, very badly against each other for their own
Yeah.
interest.
Yeah.
It's bad girls and bad boys going together and basically making bad things happen.
Yes. Yeah. I don't even know that I would call them anti-heroes because they're not necessarily even anti-heroes. They're the outlaws. And I wanted to try to show, as far as for Margaret, maybe not necessarily people like her or she's not a hero. She's not the good person at this
She's not
point.
your role model for upcoming girls.
No, she's not somebody that you would ever look at and be like, I want to be like Margaret. No, you don't want to be like Margaret. She's deeply traumatized. She's had a horrible life, and she's doing the best that she can. So I don't want people to look up to her. But what I wanted to try to do is maybe even if people didn't agree with the choices she makes, maybe I could explain it well enough that they could at least understand why Margaret chooses to act the way that she does. Because she's not a nice person. She's not a moral, upstanding person. She lies, she cheats, she steals, she's killed people. But why does she do that? And that's what I really wanted to kind of dig into. And that was fun for me to see if I could make it explain, maybe even if you would never do that in your real life, why did Margaret do it? And can you kind of see where she's coming from and why she chose that? So that was fun.
Absolutely. Makes them more human.
Yeah.
Mhm. Like a past background way more interesting to act so that people can understand how she went to that path or why she chose that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I wanted to make her human. So she just wasn't this bad person just making bad choices, but yeah, get into the humanity behind it. And she had a horrible upbringing. Her parents abandoned her. They treated her badly. She's been through years of abuse and abandonment, and she just wants to take care of herself and her girls, and she doesn't care who else she hurts at this point. But yeah, I just really tried to get in the humanity of it, and maybe why she makes those kinds of choices even if they are bad choices.
Hmm.
And she's looking out for a bunch of girls that she's actually
Mhm.
made a family out of. So it's like she's not just some isolated person
Yeah.
out to do evil on things.
Yeah, exactly. She's not necessarily bloodthirsty, but she does have a family she's trying to protect. She's created this family, these other girls who are in terrible situations, and she has her number one like sidekick helper person. His name's Buck. She takes good care of him. He's actually when he was a kid, he'd been abused really badly to the point where he doesn't think as a normal person, so he would never be able to survive probably on his own. And so she takes care of him and he takes care of her, and they all just work together. They're just broken people in horrible situations doing the best that they can. And they're not the heroes. They're not the lawmen who are respected by the town. They're despised by the town people. They're the low of the low, and they don't want to be there anymore. And so they're willing to do whatever they need to do to get out of it. And even if it's brutal, even if it's ugly, even if it's against the law, they figure, life's knocked them down and they're gonna fight their way back up, whatever it takes.
So, does this group that she have right now, like let's say her family, is it gonna grow in the future, or is it gonna be the same, or where are you going with them?
With them. They might grow a little bit. They might have a few more people that they bring into it. In this book, they actually talk about how in this book, Outlaw's Revenge, because she's coming head to head with Jake. Some of her girls have realized that they don't really want to do the train robbing anymore. They feel bad about that. They don't like the fact that some people might die. They don't like that, and so they want out. And so some people might leave, some people might come in. Eventually I think that Margaret is probably going to see the light and decide that she doesn't really want to be that kind of a person either, but at this point she doesn't feel like she has any other options. So I've kind of left that open. I could kind of go either way. It kind of depends what she ends up doing and wanting. I don't know. Sometimes the characters kind of take on a life of their own.
Indeed. Do you plot out exactly where the books are going to go, or do you let the characters dictate to you where they're going?
I kind of let the characters dictate to me where they're going to go. Because, like I said, when I started this series, I thought the heroes were going to be Rebecca and Will. And I just tried and tried to make them the main characters. And then there was Margaret, and she was like, no, I need to be in charge of this. I need to tell my story. And she was just there. And her parts were so fun to write. And I could really empathize with her, I suppose. And so, yeah, I kind of let the characters dictate where they're going. I actually almost kind of write my books backwards because I don't really have a whole outline of where I want to go with it. I'll come up with like a scene or idea in my head that's like this big culminating event, that's dramatic and often violent and just really gritty. And then I actually write that part first. And then I kind of backtrack and I figure out, okay, well, how do we need to get to this part? Because this is a really good story changing scene or storytelling scene. How do we then bring it up to that point? So I kind of write my books backwards a little bit as far as that, but it's really fun to just visualize these intense situations that these characters keep getting themselves into. So I would say the characters are definitely telling me where they want to go and how to get there. And it's such a bizarre thing to have these characters that are inside my head, but they don't always do what I want them to, and it's really just bizarre that it works out that way.
Where do you think the inspiration for the stories comes from? Talking to you and telling you everything about that.
You know what? I'm not really sure. I think Margaret is somebody that's so different from me. I'm very much a rule follower. I'm very much if I accidentally walk out of the grocery store and realize I didn't pay for milk, I'll go back and repay for it because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to pay for my milk. But Margaret's not. So I don't know, maybe she's like the opposite of me, and that's really fun for me to write. So I'm not really sure. I think maybe if there was no law and there was total just lawlessness and craziness, I hope that I would be tough enough to be like Margaret and survive no matter what the costs are. But as far as the stories, I don't know. I listen to a lot of music. Like if I'm running or if I'm working out, I listen to a lot of music, and sometimes certain songs will help me come up with certain stories or feelings. And if certain feelings, then I can expand on them and make a story or a scene out of them and push the story along that way. So I think that's probably where I get a lot of my inspiration from.
So you know I'm going to ask what Margaret's playlist is.
Margaret's playlist. She has a lot, actually, a lot of, I really like the band In This Moment. They're kind of a heavy metal band. They're angry. Margaret's angry. So she's really angry, actually. So I listen to a lot of them. Listen to a lot of Halsey. I listen to Pretty Reckless. There's several that I listen to, but it's kind of my gym mix. And so it's angry. And so Margaret's she's ready. She's ready to fight. She's ready. to come up against nobody, come up against anybody, no matter who they are. And she's not going to back down. She's not going to quit. She's not going to stay quiet and stay in her place the way that everybody thinks she should. She's going to survive no matter what the cost is. And I like that about Margaret.
She's like the kind of female, if we'd say, let's say we put her in the modern days. She's the kind of female that is badass with a broken
Yes.
past and
Yes.
has a leather black jacket with a
Yeah.
bunch of bikers around her.
Exactly. Yeah, she would probably be the leader of a biker gang somewhere, and they
Yeah.
would be, yeah, something like that. She would be in charge. She wouldn't she wouldn't let her broken past define her and let her it keep her down. But yeah, she would definitely be badass. She'd got the cool boots and the leather jacket, and she's just tough and she's gritty and she's not gonna back down.
If somebody did something wrong, she would basically just put him on the floor and then stomp on.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, exactly. She's not going to stop no matter what. She's not afraid, or she is afraid. I think that actually I go into that quite a bit. She is afraid, but she's not going to let that stop her anyways. She's not going to stay down. She's not going to be beaten, even though that was her lot in life that she was given. And back then, I think in the West, especially for Margaret, women didn't have a whole lot of different, I mean, you could be a school teacher, maybe, but she's not well educated and she got in a rough patch in life early on. Nobody would hire her as a school teacher. She could be a wife or a homesteader, but again, she's a madam of a brothel. That might be a hard switch to get into. And so she doesn't have a whole lot of options right now, but she's determined to make the best of what she has. So I like her, just her toughness. I really like that about her.
Yeah, because there's not really a lot of female, not that I know of, female protagonists when it comes to like Westerns. It's always like
Yeah.
marshals, males.
So the Old West, especially, I do think it was a man's world, and maybe it
Hmm.
wasn't. Maybe we just don't hear a lot about how women were back then. But
Yeah.
you don't hear many stories unless they're a school teacher or a
Hmm.
wife or a homesteader, and those things are great things. But I thought it would be more fun to like, well, what if they're not? What if there's she's the bad girl and what does she do to survive? Because you do all the westerns are stories about marshals and
Hmm.
heroes, and those are really fun to read, like the John Wayne type. You can cheer for them, you can root them on, root for them, and hope that they succeed and bring down the bad guys and stuff like that. But then it was kind of fun to think about, well, what were the bad guys doing at that point?
There are also like most readers, like myself, I want something that I can read. Oh, this is very tragic. No happy
Mm-hmm.
endings. That's what I like
Yeah,
to read.
yeah. There's a fair bit of tragedy in just her story, her life
Hmm.
story. It was funny. I'm kind of writing ahead because, as I said, I get sometimes just themes or ideas in my head, certain parts of the books, and I was writing it down. And my son, he's 12, he had seen a little bit of it on the computer as I was typing it. And he came to me, he was like, Mom, you can't do that. That is too sad. You can't do that one. And this is a future book, it's not out yet. But and he told me, he was so sweet. He's like, I will give you all my allowance if you change this part. And I was like, I can't change it. That's where it needs to go. But he was so sad about what I was working on that he was like, you need to change it. It's too sad. So there's there's that coming down the line. But yeah, I was sad when I was writing it. I had to pull it together so I could write that particular scene. But I'm excited for when that one comes out too.
Say when you get emotionally attached to the whole process of writing, that's when you write your best, I would say,
Hmm.
Yeah.
because you are very vested in what that person is doing and what is happening to them.
Well,
And
and it's so
hopefully can make the
interesting.
readers cry too.
Yeah, I was getting all teary-eyed. I was crying. I had to wipe my face so I could keep typing. But you get attached to these people and you want them to do well and you feel so connected to them. And so if they're having a hard time, you feel bad for them. If they're upset, you're upset. And I think that that's what's really fun about writing is that I can kind of bring these people to life. And I like that.
Where do you see the series going? How many more books do you think you have on this particular one?
You
Or
know,
do we
it's
branch off into other ones that jump out of this one?
Well, yes, I think that I want to do that. It's funny because when I first started, I was like, well, how many books can I really get out of an outlaw character? Do people want to read it? And then as I've started writing, there have been just more and more ideas that have popped into my head as far as, and so I thought maybe I can get 3 books. And now I have kind of an idea for, I'm like, I could probably get 6 books easy out of this. And then I've also got I'm going to introduce a martial character, and I'm hoping what I want to do is that I want to go and do a whole series on him too. And he will be the quintessential good guy and like a hero people can root for and stuff like that. So I have other characters planned and kind of branch off stories and stuff like that. And it's just really fun and really exciting. So I kind of see what I think right now. I think Margaret's going to end up deciding that this life is too, she wants out. That's her main goal. And if she can have a different avenue of getting out of, being a madam and, kind of being an outlaw, then she's going to take that. So my goal for her is that eventually she's going to meet up with this other marshal guy or sheriff or whatever he's going to be. And then he's going to be like, hey, you're really smart. You're really tough. Maybe we could work together to bring, other outlaws to justice. And she'll kind of get like a sort of a pardon, or she'll change her ways and go forward. It's almost like, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio. I thought years ago, so I'm not even sure. But I believe at the end of it that he ends up working, I think, with the FBI and stuff like that. So I kind of tentatively have that idea for Margaret right now, where I want to offer her an out. And I think she's going to end up working with this Marshall guy and end up being on the side of the good guys, that he's going to be able to help her find a way out. And I want Margaret to have a happily ever after. She's had a rough life, and I feel really bad for her. And she's tough and she's gritty and she's brave, and I want her to find happiness and peace. And I'm hoping that she'll eventually go that direction and end up with this Marshall and be on the good side of the law at the end of the series.
Sometimes, at least for a couple books, it's nice to have somebody who's on the other side of the law to help somebody who's on the right side
Mm-hmm.
that can
That's
go
what I'm
and talk to the
hoping.
people they're not allowed to talk to and do the things they're not allowed to do.
Exactly. That's what I'm really hoping for, because she would have access. I mean, she works in a brothel, she works at the saloon. She would have access to all these unsavory characters that she could learn their secrets, learn about. She could pass information. And so that's kind of where I see her going. I see her working with law enforcement kind of that way, being undercover, and then, being able to ease her way out of that. So that's the plan for her going forward. I just don't know how long it'll take her to get there. So
Mhm.
that's what we're working on.
Yeah, but sometimes though, situations like that is like, let's say, let's wait 2 years later, she's gonna get,
Hmm.
they're gonna chase her again.
Yeah, it could be that way too. I have a kind of the sheriff of the town that she's in. She's in Denver City right now. And I have the sheriff of the town, his name's Stephen McMahon, and he's going to end up being a bad guy. And so I think my next book, or somewhere down the line, she's going to come head to head with the sheriff, and he's actually going to be a bad guy. So that one will be fun. And then she's going to work with the good sheriff or marshal or whatever he ends up being to kind of take down this corrupt sheriff. And yeah, so we'll see where that goes. I think she's got a lot of dangerous adventures still, down the line that she can get involved with, whether she's working with the law or she's actively working against the law. I think that she's definitely going to be getting in a lot of trouble and finding her way out of that through the next few books.
So after this series, are you gonna be, let's say this series is done and then you want to create more? Is it gonna be like another female badass character or
I don't know. I think the one that I'm in my head that I have next, I think is going to be the Marshall that's going to end up with Margaret. I'm going to do a few books about
mm,
him. So it would probably be more a man, just a sheriff at that point, or a marshal doing good heroic things, helping people out like that. I don't have any other strong female characters in my mind at this point, but she's been really fun to write. So I would love to, if somebody else and my subconscious comes up and knocks and wants their story to be told too. I would love to write other strong female characters who are willing to take what they've been given and run with it, or and fight tooth and nail for a future for themselves and the people that they care about. So I hope so. I think that would be really fun to write more strong female characters, especially in westerns when there really aren't a whole lot of female characters as main characters.
So where are you going with this Marshall then? You write a book for him first, let's say two books, and then until they finally merge together with where Margaret series is. So it's kind of like their story is like until they meet.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm going to do. Even if I have them meet and have a couple of books with them together, I might go and write back, go like back in time and write his story,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
a few books about him up to that point. Um, yeah, stuff like that. Or else if I take his story further, then Margaret could kind of just fade to the background a little bit, and it be his story and he take off with it, but it would be a different series because
Mhm.
this is Margaret's series.
Yeah.
And so
Yes, I don't think Margaret fades to the background.
No,
that's
she's
true
too
too.
noisy.
No, yeah, she's too, and that's what because I've already had ideas as far as them where that's going to be really hard for him if he's a rule follower and she is not a rule follower at all. So, I mean, they may not end up together. They may fight too much. I don't know. We'll see if we can make it work. Because if he wants to be with Margaret, he's definitely going to have to turn a blind eye to some things, and that may be against his character. He may not be able to do it. So, we'll
But
see.
then
We'll see.
sometimes you just love the person and that's just it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and that's true too. So yeah, we'll have to see as far as that.
Yeah, Margaret is like the kind of person that would barge in a church just to get to that guy that she has a beef with.
Yeah, that's exactly what she did when she took down the bad reverend who was just kind of corrupt and sneaky. She did. She went
Mm.
into his church. They killed him and then she burned his church down because he burned down her saloon. And she's very vindictive. She's very violent and she's very vindictive. And if you make Margaret mad, she's gonna come at you and she's going to take you out. If she feels threatened by you, she's going to make sure she takes you out before you can mess with her or her family. And so, I kind of like that about Margaret. That's fun to write.
Indeed, she sounds like a great character to get to know.
Yep. Thank you for your time today. And it was a fun interview. And we look forward to more with Margaret series. And let's
Mm-hmm.
see where that's going. Is there something or like a couple of words you like to say?
I would just like to encourage people to read Margaret. She's tough. She's willing to do whatever she needs to do in life to get ahead and to not be put off by. I think people hear that she's a madam at a brothel and they might think, oh, I don't want to read about that. Well, there's not a lot about that part of her life, so don't be afraid. It's just who she is. That's her background story. She's got a lot of trauma. You gotta she's got a lot going on and she works hard. So give Margaret a chance and she might really surprise you. She's tough, she's tenacious, she's loyal to a fault to the people that she loves and cares about. She's fiercely protective. She can be vindictive, she can be bad, but she is if Margaret's on your side, she's ride or die and she's going to be with you through thick and thin no matter what. She's got your back. And I really like that about her. So don't be afraid of Margaret. Give her a chance and you might really like it. So branch out a little if that's not your typical book that you might read, give it a shot. See what you think.
All
All
available
right.
up on Amazon by Randa Payne. Everybody go out and buy several copies, get the entire series.
Do it. It'll be great. And let me know what you think. If you like it, leave a review. Let me know what you think or, tell me what you want to hear or what you don't like or what you do like. Just let me know. I'd love to get some feedback.
Very
Great.
good. Well, thank you, Randa. Appreciate you coming in today.
All right. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Oh, I last time I was in a meeting with Nick and you, and then Bob
Mhm.
came in. How did it go? Or like you were gonna be doing a collab with him, I think.
Yes, I'm actually really excited to do a co-write with him. I've read some of his books and he's really good. He's got a good, strong character, nice, just upstanding, consistent martial character. Ezra Flint is his character.
Mhm.
And I'm really excited to do a co-write with Bob because he's really good. He's a good author.
Bob is a
And
good writer. Yeah.
yeah, he's really good. So I was reading his books. I'm not gonna lie, I'm intimidated too because I'm like, he's really good.
Oh,
But
he's a lot of fun. No
excited.
worries.
Yeah, he's awesome. So I'm really excited to get a chance to work with him and see what that story ends up like because he's really good and he's got a really good strong character.
That's a way to look forward to the
Yeah,
future with.
another one
Mhm.
definitely to get into there.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, everybody go read the Ezra Flint novels too because they're good. And he's going to end up with Margaret in a book in collaboration and see what they do together. We're not sure yet if we want Margaret to be against him or if we want them to work together for something. We're not sure yet.
Yes,
But it's I
you
know.
want both.
I know. I know. Maybe she can start out against him and they end up together. I don't know. It's going to be great either way. They're both really good, strong characters. So
Well, that'll be a lot of fun. Yes, looking forward to that.
I'm so happy to talk to you guys. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, glad to
Of
have you
course.
here.